The first knock came at 6:17 p.m. Not a friendly knock, not a neighborly knock. This was the kind of knock that says, "We're here to remind you who's in charge." When I opened the door, there were 2 police officers on my porch, and behind them, standing at a very safe distance, was the HOA president, arms folded, smug smile already loaded. She wouldn't look at me directly. She didn't have to, because in her mind, this was already over. She told the officers I was trespassing, that I'd refused to comply, that I was illegally using private property that belonged to the association. And the worst part? She said all of this with absolute confidence. Let me rewind for a second. I had moved into the neighborhood just 3 weeks earlier. Quiet place, clean streets, too many rules. The HOA had already fined me twice. Once for my truck being too large, once for sitting on my own porch after 9 p.m. But the real problem? The lake. That afternoon, I was walking along the shoreline, the same shoreline my father used to take me fishing on. That's when she showed up. Clipboard, sunglasses, that tone people use when they think rules make them important. She told me the lake was HOA-only property, told me I had no right to be there, told me to leave immediately or she'd handle it. I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue. I just smiled. And that's when she made the call. Back on the porch, one officer cleared his throat and asked, "Sir, are you aware you're being accused of trespassing on HOA control land?" I nodded. "Yes," I said, "I'm aware." The HOA president finally spoke. "This man thinks he owns the place," she said, laughing. "He's been disrespectful since day one." The officer turned back to me. "Do you have proof of ownership?" I stepped inside, came back with a folder. Not dramatic, not rushed, just calm. I handed it to the officer and watched his eyebrows slowly rise. See, what the HOA didn't know, what no one in that neighborhood knew, was that the property deed didn't stop at my front door. It covered the lake, the shoreline, the walking paths, even the land the HOA office was built on. My grandfather bought it 40 years ago. When he passed, it came to me, the HOA had been operating on assumptions, and no one had ever bothered to challenge them. Until now, the second officer asked quietly, "Ma'am, did the HOA ever verify ownership of the land?" Silence. The smug smile disappeared. She stammered something about historical use and community understanding. The officer closed the folder. "Ma'am," he said, "this property belongs to him." Her face went pale. Then came the part I'll never forget. The officer turned to her. "You're the one trespassing." She laughed nervously. "Oh, come on, this is just a misunderstanding." The officer didn't smile. "And you made a false police report." You could feel it then, the power shifting. I didn't say a word. I didn't have to. She had called the police to intimidate me, to remind me that I was new. Instead, she reminded herself what happens when you assume control you don't have. The officers left shortly after, but not before advising her to consult a lawyer. She walked away without another word. No clipboard, no confidence. The next morning, the HOA sent an email. Subject line, "Temporary suspension of rules enforcement." By the end of the week, the HOA president resigned. The fine stopped. The letters stopped. And suddenly, everyone was very polite. Here's the thing. This story isn't about money or power. It's about what happens when people forget that authority doesn't come from arrogance. She thought rules made her untouchable. She thought calling the police would scare me. But she never asked the one question that mattered. Who actually owns this place? If you've ever dealt with an HOA that overstepped, if you've ever been talked down by someone with a clipboard and an ego, then you already know. Sometimes the loudest people in the room are standing on ground that isn't theirs. And sometimes one phone call changes everything.